So what if the most authentic, gritty, like tear gas stained 1970s protest anthem you've ever heard was actually written yesterday
Yeah.
and by an algorithm?
I mean, it completely upends how we think about the authenticity of recorded sound, right?
It really does, because usually when people think about artificial intelligence generating music, they picture this sort of, I don't know, digital vending machine.
Oh, definitely. Like a novelty thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like you type in, make me a catchy pop beat, you hit enter, and it just spits out something really shiny, something mathematically perfectly tuned, but, ultimately a little hollow.
Right. It might get stuck in your head, but it doesn't leave a footprint on your soul.
Exactly. But welcome to Hellcat's King of the Hill podcast, everyone.
Yeah.
For today's deep dive, we are counting down the top 3 winning tracks from the absolute latest King of the Hill AI music community competition.
And we're going in reverse order today.
We are. And let me tell you, what these creators are doing, it's going to shatter that vending machine analogy completely.
It really is, because the overarching theme uniting these 3 winning tracks is it's this concept of sonic mythology and the power of lore.
Ooh, I love that phrase, sonic mythology.
Right. These aren't just catchy songs. The creators are basically treating the AI engine as a tool for profound psychological myth-making.
Okay, wait, let's define that for the listener before we jump into the tracks. When you say sonic mythology, what are we actually looking at in practice?
Well, we are looking at audio architecture. That's the best way to describe it.
Audio architecture.
Yeah, because these creators aren't just asking the model for a vibe. They are constructing incredibly specific historical auras, immersive religious rituals, and even these dark cautionary tales.
Oh, wow. So they're basically world building with sound.
Exactly. They are using AI to forge psychedelic lore, completely transporting you into a reality that either never existed or, resurrecting a ghost from a very specific moment in time.
And speaking of resurrecting ghosts, that is exactly where our countdown begins today. So let's look at our third place track.
Yeah, let's get into it.
This one scored a 71.3 out of 100. It's called Annihilation, specifically the Love and Peace remix by the artist I Am the Evil Twin.
Such a great track.
It really is. And the artist noted they were specifically targeting a quote-unquote 70s hippie style.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, when you listen to this, it legitimately sounds like you unearthed a dusty, unreleased vinyl record.
Right, like in a flooded basement in San Francisco or something.
Exactly that aesthetic.
Well, the precision of that historical aura is exactly why it scored so well. If we examine the style prompts I Am the Evil Twin used, it's fascinating. They bypassed all those generic terms like classic rock.
Oh, they didn't just ask for classic rock.
No, not at all. They commanded the engine to generate a slow, atmospheric, 4/4 laid-back rock beat. And they specifically called for swirling analog synths and vintage Hammond pads to build this deeply psychedelic foundation.
Okay, let me stop you there, because the Hammond pads are really what sell the illusion for me.
Oh, 100%.
But, so, here is where I get a little skeptical, right? Because AI naturally defaults to a very clean, pristine, sterile sound.
That's true. It wants to be perfect.
Right. So if you command it to create the imperfection of a vintage Hammond organ or like a fuzz bass, doesn't it just sound like you slapped a cheap digital sepia filter over a high-res photo?
I know exactly what you mean.
Like, how does this track actually pull off authentic grit without just sounding incredibly synthetic?
So that is the core challenge of audio architecture.
Yeah.
You have to engineer acoustic friction.
Acoustic friction.
Yeah. When you prompt an AI to use clean instruments, it mathematically optimizes them to the point of sterility. But I Am the Evil Twin specifically prompted for rich fuzz bass and hazy, reverb-soaked vocals. And fuzz, by definition, is audio distortion, right? It's literally clipping the sound wave. So by forcing the AI to generate a degraded, clipping audio signal, it essentially tricks the human ear.
That is so clever.
Right. We have decades of neurological conditioning that associates those warm, degraded sonic textures with human struggle, analog gear, and just historical reality in general.
Oh, I see. So the algorithm's attempt to synthesize that damage actually bypasses our digital skepticism.
Exactly.
So the imperfection acts as a Trojan horse for emotion.
Precisely. That's a great way to put it. And they amplify that emotion with a massive dynamic shift. So right in the middle of this dreamy, floating, atmospheric drone, the prompt suddenly demands a raw, wah-heavy garage rock guitar solo.
Which violently pulls you out of the trance. I jumped a little when I first heard it.
Right. It creates this abrasive spike in tension, representing the conflict of the era, before dissolving back into a lush, dirge-like ambient outro.
Wow.
They even prompted for a, quote, live crowd buried in the mix, turning a studio generation into a phantom historical event.
Which totally recontextualizes the lyrics completely.
Yeah.
Because structurally, this doesn't look like a song on paper at all.
No, it really doesn't.
Like, there are no verses or a traditional chorus. The lyrics are incredibly minimalist. It's essentially just the phrase, I have it here, this is not the way it used to be, this is not the way I see it, this is not the way, this is not the way, this is not the way to peace.
It totally abandons pop structure to become a hypnotic mantra.
Right. If you read those lyrics off a page, they seem almost too repetitive. But when you place them over that hazy, fuzz bass-driven instrumental with the phantom crowd noise in the back,
it changes everything.
It really does. It suddenly feels like you are literally standing in the middle of a peace rally. You are hearing the collective chant of a crowd that is exhausted, maybe a little disillusioned, but just completely unyielding.
Yeah, they engineered nostalgia for a protest you never actually attended.
That is exactly it. But, there is a ceiling to historical fiction, right?
What do you mean?
Well, because you are ultimately constrained by the era you are trying to mimic. So what happens when an audio architect abandons the past entirely and just, builds a mythology from scratch?
Well, then you get our second place winner. And I gotta say, the massive leap in score here, up to 95.9 out of 100, it really reflects the sheer ambition of inventing a reality from the ground up.
Okay, so this brings us to Earossë savilmë by the artist Quite Oak. And honestly, the title alone signals that we have left the basement and walked into a completely different universe.
Oh, Quite Oak didn't just write a song. They invented a religion.
Yes.
Their genre prompts was literally Elven cinematic folk fused with tribal forest religious rituals.
Which is wild. Imagine sitting at your computer trying to design an Elven ritual. I mean, your first instinct is probably to just throw in some generic ethereal synthesizers and call it a day, right?
Well, yeah, that's the easy route.
But Quite Oak went in with surgical precision. They requested an entire forest symphony, like harp, pan flute, bass flute, alto flute, oboe, clarinet, bass clarinet, cello, subtle frame drum, tambourine, and bells.
And notice what's missing there. They avoided synths entirely.
Yeah, not a single one.
Because woodwinds and raw string instruments carry the acoustic resonance of physical wood and breath. But the actual genius of Quite Oak's prompt engineering isn't even what they included. It's the defensive perimeter they built.
Oh, using negative prompts.
Exactly.
The negative prompts on this track are fascinating. For those listening, they explicitly commanded the engine. Minus glitch, minus pop, minus pink, minus EDM, minus trap, minus country, minus synthwave, minus ambient and drone, minus disco.
They basically built a magical sonic wall to protect the sanctity of their lore.
I love that. A magical sonic wall.
Because you have to remember how these AI models function, right? They are trained on millions of contemporary tracks. So their default mathematical bias is to pull from modern popular genres.
Like EDM or pop.
Right, because the algorithm associates those structures with good or successful music.
Okay, so if you don't explicitly ban those genres, the AI might try to, sneak a trap hi-hat into your Elven ceremony just to make it more catchy?
Exactly. It wants to please the listener with what's popular. So by strictly walling off those modern influences, Quite Oak forces the algorithm to dig deep into the most obscure acoustic pathways of its training data.
It has no choice but to stay within those ancient ceremonial parameters.
Which perfectly sets the stage for the character at the center of this ritual. The artists actually provided this brilliant insight in their notes.
About Maya.
Yeah. They said that their character, Maya, carries the song. Maya has enough presence to make a simple expression of belief feel utterly compelling.
And the vocal prompt is so specific. They asked for shy, breathy female vocals singing Elven devotion with accompanying and accentuating Elven Gregorian chant choirs.
And the lyrics Maya sings, they just ground this massive, expansive world into a single intimate moment. She sings, Earossë savilmë. Yes, savilmë. In him we must believe, and her we must embrace.
And then there's this beautifully inclusive, philosophical line later on where she goes, Arrow is for those who choose, Ea is for those who muse.
It creates the illusion of such deep theological history.
It really does. But this is where I want to push back a little on the psychology of the listener.
Okay, go for it.
Because a massive chunk of this song is delivered in a completely fictional Elven language.
True.
Words we absolutely do not have definitions for. So without semantic meaning, why aren't we just confused? Why does hearing fabricated syllables still manage to evoke genuine feelings of religious awe?
That is a great question. And it's because Reverence has a universal acoustic signature that predates language entirely.
Wait, really? Predates language?
Yeah, it's entirely rooted in biological response and acoustic physics.
Okay.
We aren't responding to the dictionary definition of Maya's words. We are responding to the cadence.
Ah, the shy, breathy delivery.
Exactly. That delivery of the vocal implies vulnerability before a higher power. And when the AI generates those Elven Gregorian chant choirs, it simulates the reverb of a massive ancient space.
Like a cathedral or, a clearing in a giant redwood forest.
Right. And when the human ear detects that specific type of long-tail reverberation mixed with harmonized human voices, it naturally triggers our capacity for spiritual connection.
That is incredible.
It's sonic pareidolia. Our brains are hardwired to hear the shape of faith in those frequencies, so it renders the fictional mythology deeply resonant, even if the words themselves are totally invented.
We hear the architecture of a cathedral, so we just assume the prayer is real.
Beautifully said.
Okay, we'll take a deep breath because we are about to leave the ethereal heights of elven devotion and crash headfirst into the dirt, grit, and blood of our final track.
Yeah, we are moving from high fantasy to dark Americana.
Oh, this is where mythology stops being a sacred ritual and becomes a terrifying local legend. Let's talk about the King of the Hill.
The absolute winner.
Taking the first place spot with a near-perfect score of 98.9 out of 100, we have The Price of Rain by the artist The Beggars' Ransom.
I mean, if White Oak acted as an architect building a cathedral, The Beggars' Ransom acted as a meticulous, exacting film director setting up a gothic horror western.
That's the perfect comparison.
They left absolutely nothing to the algorithm's imagination.
Let me read you the technical specs they demanded, because it's honestly less of a prompt and more of a strict musical blueprint.
It really is.
They commanded exactly 115 beats per minute. They specified the key of G major, 4/4 time. And they programmed precise dynamic stops and builds right into the arrangement.
It's so rigid.
Right. And that's my question. Folk music, especially dark Americana, it's supposed to breathe. It's organic. It's supposed to speed up and slow down with the emotion of the singer.
Typically, yes.
So if you lock it to a rigid 115 BPM and dictate the exact key, doesn't that make it sound like, I don't know, a robot playing a banjo? How does this rigidity actually amplify the raw storytelling?
So it really comes down to the psychology of tension. A kick drum hitting relentlessly at exactly 115 beats per minute isn't just a tempo. It actively mimics an elevated, anxious human heartbeat.
Oh, wow. Didn't even think of that.
Right. By refusing to let the tempo breathe or sway, The Beggars' Ransom creates this inescapable sense of dread. It sounds like a relentless, inevitable march toward a tragic fate. The rigidity basically becomes the terror.
It's literally the sound of the stranger walking into town and his footsteps just never slow down.
Exactly. And their choice of G major is equally calculated. On a standard acoustic guitar, G major is arguably the most resonant, earthy key you can play.
Because of the open strings.
Yes, it utilizes the open low strings, creating this booming, droning bedrock that shakes the virtual wood of the instrument. It grounds the entire song in the dirt.
And the instrumentation they layered over that G major bedrock is just so visceral. Like, they asked for stomp and holler folk rock with gritty baritone male vocals.
Such a great vocal tone.
And underneath that, a driving acoustic guitar strumming eighth notes and that heavy kick drum hitting on every single beat with hand claps on the backbeat.
But the real masterstroke of tension is the contrast in the higher frequencies.
The banjo, right?
Yeah. They requested a bright, percussive banjo playing syncopated rolls. But then, during the chorus, they introduced these distorted, bluesy, electric guitar fills that just violently clash with the banjo.
It feels dangerous. Like, the traditional acoustic soul of this town is being invaded by this electric, distorted corruption.
That is spot on.
And that sonic corruption perfectly mirrors the lyrics, too. The storytelling here is incredibly tight. It's this grim folk tale about a starving town making a desperate, dark bargain with a stranger just to end a drought.
You really have to listen to how efficiently they established the stakes in the second verse. They wrote, "Dust in the well, no wheat in the ground. Mother stopped singing when supper came round. Preacher said whole, but the children grew thin. Then the stranger came smiling with rain on his skin."
Ugh, chills. It paints the entire desperation of the town in just 4 lines. And the crazy part is the stranger actually warns them.
Yes.
The lyrics say, "He said, I can open the clouds for a song, but what rolls from mercy don't stay mercy long." That is just phenomenal Gothic writing.
It really is. And it builds to this haunting moral rationalization later in the track where they ask if every full table had a shadow pulled in, if the price was paid in signs, was it really sin?
Ah, it's so dark. So the town makes the deal, they get their rain, their fields turn green, but they willfully ignore the phantom they invited in.
And this narrative tension completely explodes in the chorus. The Beggars' Ransom specifically requested, quote, group backing vocals providing anthemic harmonies, and it just elevates the song into a massive climax.
Bury the names beneath the floor, clap your hands and ask for more. We prayed for rain, we paid and paid, now he's knocking at the door. Hearing that massive group of voices shouting those lines, it permanently seals this dark legend into your mind.
Because those group vocals function exactly like a Greek chorus in a classical tragedy.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
The song stops being a story told by one narrator. It suddenly transforms into the entire damn town singing their own collective confession.
So good. Let's talk about the dynamic stops you mentioned earlier, though, because they occur right around these massive vocal moments. How do those stops actually manipulate the listener?
This dives right into the neuroscience of musical anticipation.
Okay, hit me with it.
When you have a driving 4/4 beat pounding into your chest, your brain synchronizes with it. It expects the next beat to arrive exactly on schedule.
Right, you get locked into the groove.
So when the Beggars' Ransom programmed a dynamic stop, suddenly dropping all instrumentation to absolute silence for a fraction of a second, they create a sonic vacuum.
So the brain expects the kick drum that gets absolutely nothing.
Exactly. And in that microsecond of silence, your brain floods with adrenaline, trying to resolve the missing pattern. It deprives the listener of the groove just long enough so that when the distorted guitar and the screaming group vocals crash back in, they hit with twice the psychological force. The constraint of the prompt focuses the raw energy into a literal weapon.
That is just brilliant. So synthesizing everything we've looked at today, we've gone from the raw fuzz bass of a simulated 1970s peace rally to the breathy woodwinds of an Elven cathedral, all the way to the pounding, relentless heartbeat of a doomed Americana town.
What a journey.
Right. What does this tell us about the current state of AI music generation?
Honestly, it proves that the technology is merely a canvas. The whole vending machine era is over for anyone who takes it seriously.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Whether an artist is building historical events, religious ceremonies, or blood-soaked legends, treating the AI as an instrument for deep lore and audio architecture is what separates good tracks from true masterpieces.
It's all about the intention.
Exactly. The real magic isn't the algorithm, it's the human imagination, dictating the constraints, manufacturing the friction, and crafting the mythology. These artists aren't just generating songs. They're inviting us into worlds they've summoned out of thin air.
They are building worlds, brick by sonic brick. And if you understand the psychology of sound, you can engineer an entirely new reality.
Absolutely.
Which leaves me with a final thought for you to mull over as we wrap up this deep dive. If you had the power to engineer your own sonic mythology from scratch, what forgotten era, hidden ritual, or dark local legend would you bring into existence? What ghost would you summon?
I love that. Something for everyone to think about.
Thank you for listening to Hellcat's King of the Hill podcast. Make sure to check the description to hear the full tracks and join the server if you want to play in King of the Hill.